gentlemen, greetings and welcome to Casual Discussion, the show where we talk and try to have fun. I'm your host, Zelrix, and today, once again, we're gonna discuss the philosophy of a comic book character. Superheroes have a way of delivering some message, whether it is hope for Captain America and Superman, justice for Batman, righteousness for Thor, or self-improvement for Iron Man. But among all these messages, none is as explicit as Spider-Man's relationship with the great responsibilities of this world. With great power comes great responsibility. It is an odd choice when you think about it. There are a lot of Marvel characters much more powerful than Spidey who could use some responsibility sometimes. Like, I don't know, Thor, Vision, Sentry. So why Spider-Man? See, Peter Parker is a Marvel character. Opposite to the DC characters who are written to be looked up to, Marvel characters are built to be relatable. Peter is a teenager. He doesn't always get the girl, he has money problems, he has to worry about stuff that Mr. and Mrs. Everybody have to worry about. Although it is associated with Uncle Ben, the original line "with great power must also comes great responsibilities" was initially spoken in Amazing Fantasy number 15, Spidey's first appearance in 1962 by an unknown narrator. Believe it or not, it's not until 1986 that Uncle Ben actually became the person we quote while saying the legendary line. For the sake of this video, whenever we associate the concept of power with the concept of responsibilities, we're gonna think about Ben Parker unless I specify otherwise. Yes, Spider-Man is a symbol of responsibility, even though he is far from being in the top tier most powerful Marvel characters. As mentioned, he is built to be relatable, and most good Spider-Man stories are actually coming-of-age stories. Being a teenager between the innocence of childhood and the rough world of adult life is the basics for many great Spider-Man stories, like the Sam Raimi trilogy. That or being at the end of this transition, being a young adult who struggles with his young adult life, like the awesome Spider-Man PS4 game. And it is true, as we grow up in the real world, we get more skills, more perks, more powers, like being able to drive when you turn 16 or being able to vote when you turn 18. But these powers comes with responsibilities. You can't be on your phone while you're driving because you have the responsibility to ensure the safety of you and everybody else on the road. Little situation, let's say you're at school and you see two big guys getting in a fist fight. It becomes violent at the point that they might hurt themselves or other students. The law requires for you to do something. You may not have the power to stop them, but you can alert a teacher or a member of the school staff. But let's say that a few months earlier you were actually bitten by a radioactive spider. Since we're in a comic book universe, you develop super strength instead of the cancer you would clearly develop in the real world. You now have the physical power to stop them, to prevent them from getting hurt or to hurt other people. Since you have this power, it becomes your responsibility to do so. You have to intervene, and that's something Spidey had to learn the hard way. In most iterations of Spider-Man, Uncle Ben died because Peter didn't try to stop a robber who fled with a gun and a bag full of cash. At this moment, Peter had the power and the responsibility to stop the robber, but he didn't do it, and because of it, Uncle Ben died. This is why Peter became a superhero, to ensure that nobody has to suffer the same fate as Uncle Ben, especially knowing that he had the power to do something while other people don't have this power. But unfortunately, life doesn't work that way. Just because you decide to do something good, it doesn't mean that the world would let you do something good. Yes, Into the Spider-Verse. Arguably the best Spider-Man movie of all time. A true wonder when it comes to the concept of loss, responsibility, and growing up. In this iteration, we don't follow Peter Parker but Miles Morales, and we clearly see that he has to follow the same path Peter had to follow, and he has to go through the same difficult things Peter had to. Losing a loved one, then becoming a hero who knows fully well that he can't save everybody, but he has to try. Otherwise, he might fall into the darkness. Most Spider-Man villains represent the darkest part of Peter's mind. The Lizard is what he would have become if he had been ripped from his humanity, becoming more animal than man. Venom is the mirror of Spider-Man, a version of him who lets his anger and hate consume his moral code. Dr. Octopus is a good man like Peter, who unfortunately went too far and has become a monster he himself created. The Green Goblin is powerful but doesn't embrace the responsibilities given to him by this power, which result in him throwing chaos around. Electro is the result of an accident that gave him power. This traumatism turned him into a villain who used his power for evil rather than good. The Kingpin cares as much as Peter for his loved ones, but is corrupted by power and money. Ben Reilly becomes the second Jackal and is literally a clone of Peter who thinks he does good things but fails to see the objective ugly truth in his action. I could have kept going for a long time, but the point is, Spider-Man isn't like his villain, but they're separated by a thin line, a thin moral code, responsibilities. That's why Spider-Man rarely kills, and when he kills, it's not on purpose. He even goes as far as to pull punches while fighting. Peter can stop a flying plane from crashing with his bare hands. If he was not to pull his punches against, let's say, the Kingpin or Electro, they would clearly die. Give his 100% because he thinks everybody deserved to be saved. Unless you count that time when the Kingpin actually shot Aunt May. You don't with Aunt May. Oh yeah, May Parker in the Spider-Man PS4 video game, at the end she dies. And her death is a perfect example of everything Spider-Man represents and stands for. After 8 years of being a superhero, Aunt May reveals that she had known for a very long time that Peter was Spider-Man, and that she was very proud of him for using his power for good. And then enters this heartbreaking dialogue.
I don't know what to do.
Yes, you do.
Peter is then presented by a choice: saving Aunt May from the virus Doc Ock has unleashed on Manhattan, or manufacturing the vaccine, saving everybody but her. Peter wants to save Aunt May. Hell, I wanted to save Aunt May. But this wasn't the responsible thing to do. This wasn't what Aunt May would have wanted or what Uncle Ben would have wanted. If the game had let me a choice, I would have gone with the same choice Peter made. I would have saved Manhattan and let Aunt May die. Not because it is easy, but because it is hard. As we know in the Marvel universe, and most especially in the universe of Spider-Man, the hardest thing is often the right thing to do. This is it. This is the ugly truth beyond responsibilities. They are often inconvenient. You find yourself having to make sacrifices, often big ones, to do what's right. Losing what you love is actually a recurring theme in good Spider-Man stories. Let's take, for example, one of the best iterations of the wall crawler for the last 2 decades, the cartoon Spectacular Spider-Man. In this iteration, once again, Peter finds himself in the need for money, much more than many comic books or movies have seen. As for the social relationship, he loses his love with Liz Allen, Mary Jane, and Gwen Stacy. Some of the most important villains of the show often end up being good friends of Peter Parker's. And most importantly, the show does a wonderful job at explaining why and how Peter takes responsibilities. By honoring Uncle Ben's memory, by accepting to be seen as the bad guy sometime, and by letting the assassin of his uncle and father figure live. Oh, and also the show contained the best J. Jonah Jameson moment ever put on screen.
Boss, I'd like a word.
How about scram? Or 2 words. Scram kid. Or 17. Get out of my office in 2.3 seconds or I'll staple you to a flagpole.
How did you count so...
Spider-Man is one of the best superheroes of all time. Heck, he's arguably the greatest superhero of all time. Not because he is strong, funny, or well written, but because he could be your next door neighbor who decided to be a good person and make the world a better place. And believe it or not, it has more impact than you think. Of course, stopping the bad guy is an important part. It might inspire other people to take responsibilities and to do what's right. Spider-Man has been an important model for me to grow up on and for many other kids. And inside his own universe, he's also a model for characters like Miles Morales who follow his footsteps. Outside of his universe, great superheroes are written on the same purpose, like Danny Phantom or the movie version of Kick-Ass. Characters who became superheroes while they were teenagers because they wanted to do good, because they thought they had the power to do good. Ultimately, Spider-Man will never have a happy ending, because he will never stop fighting. The strength he has, the spider sense, the wall crawling, these are powers Peter deserves because he understands that they come at a price. That's why in Spider-Man 2, Peter becomes way happier after having hanged the costumes because it's not his problem anymore. Unfortunately, this happiness is artificial because the only things that truly makes Peter happy is knowing the fact that people around him are safe, that he does good. He needs to do good things, and that's Spider-Man's responsibility to use his great power to ensure it. Overall, Spider-Man is a really complex character, so don't hesitate to tell me in the comment section how do you interpret his writing. Then subscribe and activate the bell to be notified when a new video comes up. Then follow me on Instagram to support my artwork, and follow the link in the description to my ArtPal account if you want to purchase some of my art. Share this video with all your Spider-Man loving friends, and as always, thanks for watching.